welcome everyone. Good morning to this Agora 2, which will be focusing on transition and low decarbonization of the economy. And we will dedicate on two specific sectors, one around energy and the second around tourism. We have the honor to be surrounded by great experts on these two sectors. I will briefly introduce each of them. So first of all, I will start on my right with Mr. Pascal Lagarde. You are, Mr. Lagarde, Executive Director of BPI, in charge of strategy, development, international affairs, and ESG. Then we have Mr. Panayotis, who is the president of MKG Consulting and Hospitality On. So this is a company that is dedicated on the tourism and hotel sector. And so you're performing analyzed and market surveys, plus you are helping, I suppose, investors to develop their own businesses in this industry. Thank you very much for being here. On the right left, we have Mr. Elenos KARAINDROS, who is a manager in strategy M&A of MYTILINEOS, which is, of course, a very famous group in Greece, specialized in electric power, gas energy supplying, and importing, of course, resources as well. Then we have Mr. Paris MOURATOGLOU, who is the president of EREN Group, which is highly recognized for his involvement in renewable energy, in photovoltaic, aeolian energy. So thank you very much for being together. And finally, Dr. Kostas Andriosopoulos. So you are Professor of Finance and Energy Economics at Audencia Business School in France. You are also chairman of the Decarbonization Fund of the Greek Islands, and you are also country manager of Akuo Energy Greece, which is also present in solar, aeolian, biomass, and hydroelectric and storage of energy. So thank you very much to all of you. Just a few words of introduction. Of course, energy is key right now in any human activity. This is probably, and it's not a bad joke, but it's probably now one of the hottest topics that humankind has to face for the coming decades. So this, if we took these two examples of the energy sector and the tourist sector, because of course they are facing both a tremendous transition and to reshuffle their business case and how to adapt to this new climate change. So of course energy itself is contributing to climate change, but probably climate change is also impacting the industry in the way it has to evolve and is facing now many challenges. For tourism, of course, is a bit the same. Wherever the climate is moving around, there is a problematic of course, transportation of tourism, and of course, the way that we can welcome people in the right condition at the right place. So this is definitely a lot of challenge to be faced. So I will not speak no more because I'm not expert in these two sectors. So most probably we will make it in a roundtable manner. Unfortunately, the time is counted, so please be careful a little bit of how long to let each of you speak. So probably the next question I would like to ask you is, as personal, as expert, and regarding your industry or your company, what are basically the challenge that you are facing, and what status or, let's say, analyze you are making on this transitional that you have to perform facing climate change? And probably I will ask first Mr. Lagarde to start.
Thank you very much. My focus would be on decarbonization of small companies. We all know that there is a strong way ahead to 2050 and 2030, where we have to decarbonize all the economy. Most of the large groups are working on that, and they are working with a very clear way ahead, and I guess this gentleman will be there to tell us. But when you look at the small companies, the SMEs, the mid-cap companies, 80% of their leaders, they say that's a very strategic and key issue. But we made some inquiries in France, very large inquiries, and we noticed that only something like between 15 and 20% only of them have a strategic planning in how they could decarbonize their business. What they don't realize, and they have to realize, that it's not only a vision or something you feel in your gut, it's something you have to do, because your clients will push you a lot, and the big groups, they will tell either you decarbonize or you're not my subcontractor anymore. And then we have a huge bunch of regulation coming from EU, which is the Fit for 55 initiative, where you will have first to publish your decarbonization plan, then to publish your KPIs, then to respect these KPIs, then you get in trouble if you don't. So my personal feeling and what's at stake is this huge number of small companies, they will be impacted, they will need CapEx, they will need to invest, especially the industrial ones, and they will need advisory. And that's not in place at all. So that's a huge challenge.
And actually because I heard that one of the problems is actually how to get in contact to these SMEs and entrepreneurs. So how would you address to shift your business model as well?
You have to do door-to-door contact with these people and tell them each time you, as a bank or public bank, but it's also the case for the private banks, each time there is a contact with one of these entrepreneurs is to tell them, okay, you've got to think about it, you should think about it, and we have the means to help you, and to help you, these are the advisory, this is advisory we can provide to you, and this is financing we can provide to you. And you've got to think about it, and it's a strategic matter. You've got to prepare yourself, and you've got to have a plan, and you need money.
Thank you very much. Mr. KARAINDROS, perhaps for MYTILINEOS, such a traditional group, what are the main challenges that you are facing now regarding the climate transition?
Actually, thank you very much for this. 2 years ago, we had an ESG webinar. And at that point in time, our chairman and our senior management, we publicly announced our CO2 targets. And we actually adhere to a rather aggressive strategic target, which is reducing our overall CO2 emissions and overall footprint by 50% by 2030, and hopefully become net zero by 2050, adhering to the overall guidances of the European Union and of the overall global landscape. However, we need to take into account the recent developments, obviously. So we park aside what has happened, what is currently happening in Russia and in Ukraine, because that would inevitably have an impact on the pace and the technologies and lots of things. But working on an isolation, I mean, on our end, the idea is, first of all, in order to achieve those targets, you have to apply a multitask strategy. First of all, obviously, you need to build new renewables. You need to rely more on renewables. You need to reduce your consumption by applying energy efficiency principles and investments. Because, yes, you need to diversify the supply chain, but also you need to reduce the demand, so you overall achieve the same target. And also, when it comes to buildings, you have to apply also energy efficiency and new technologies, so that at least you can constrain, you can actually work within an ES-friendly environment. Now, in order to achieve those targets, CapEx is one thing, obviously. And there was a reason why I said we need to park what's happening post-COVID, because we have seen, we had that discussion with Mr. MOURATOGLOU before this, you have a significant increase of capex. And also the supply of raw material at this stage is questionable. Whenever you ask for a quotation, a price quotation, they're going to tell you, yeah, this is valid for a day, or it's valid for 2 days, and then you have to confirm the availability and timing. So assuming that those things will come back to normal at some point in time in the near future, the funding is one thing, and the interest rate, the increase, it would have a material impact on the plans that we are having. Whether there is adequate infrastructure, because yes, we want to build thousands of megawatts of installed capacity of renewables in different technologies, but do we have the connections? Do we have the services that can actually facilitate this? Do we have the base load and the fuel to cover the base load? And the economics, would that make sense? So these are questions that at some point in time we need to address, and we need to make sure that in the absence of this, we cannot achieve that. Then you have the framework, the licensing framework. There has been attempts by numerous governments and the European Union to streamline the process, but still there is a lot of work that has to be done so that we can achieve those things. Prices of the offtake agreements, ultimately. Sorry, I'm going to the nitty-gritty, but ultimately these are the nitty-gritty that would have an impact as to whether we'll be able to achieve the quite aggressive targets that we want to do. And somebody has to pay for this. And unless the economics would make sense, it would be difficult to actually maintain those ambitions and achieve those targets.
Thank you. Mr. MOURATOGLOU, do you share the same targets, actually? Do you... What's the view of EREN Group?
Je vais parler français.
In French.
C'est la plus belle langue du monde, c'est le français, donc je vais vous en faire profiter. Bon, le changement climatique est un problème majeur de notre civilisation. Et ces derniers mois, il y a eu 2 événements qui ont une incidence extrêmement importante sur le changement climatique. C'est d'abord la première fois l'Union européenne a fait adopter le Green Deal, qui est une grande décision. C'est la première fois qu'une zone économique cohérente, importante, prend des mesures pour permettre la transition écologique que tout le monde déclare vouloir, mais que personne ne prend les mesures nécessaires. En fait, ça consistait, cette décision, à instaurer, pour toute la communauté européenne, à instaurer l'équivalent d'une taxe carbone. Par un mécanisme un peu compliqué, mais c'est une taxe carbone, et c'est la première fois qu'une grande région prend cette mesure. Donc, le cadre est posé, encore faut-il le mettre en place. Maintenant, comment sur le plan pratique, il va être réalisé? La stratégie des États, la plupart des États en Europe, c'est de dire, on va d'abord supprimer tout ce qui est consommation, tout ce qui est production à partir d'énergie fossile, supprimer le pétrole, le charbon d'abord, le pétrole et le gaz, pour les passer à l'électricité. C'est le rationnel, la logique de passer de la voiture thermique à la voiture électrique. C'est ça qui est derrière ce passage. Comme également produire de l'hydrogène à partir de l'électricité, d'hydrolyse. C'est donc la logique passer du fossile à l'électrique. Encore faut-il que l'électricité soit décarbonée. Et donc, pour décarboner l'électricité, il faut passer au renouvelable. C'est la grande stratégie de tous les États aujourd'hui. Ce qui est une stratégie très complexe, parce que il faut savoir que l'électricité aujourd'hui ne représente que 18% de la consommation d'énergie européenne et mondiale. C'est le même chiffre. Donc, c'est un défi absolument... C'est peut-être un pas de géant à faire pour arriver que d'ici 2050, on n'ait plus d'énergie fossile et qu'on n'ait plus que de l'électricité et de l'électricité décarbonée. C'est un défi quasi impossible, mais c'est bien le défi qu'on a pris. Et comme ça va prendre beaucoup de temps, cette transformation, pour commencer à faire des économies d'énergie, la Commission, l'Europe avait décidé de passer rapidement, supprimer le charbon et de le passer au gaz. Ça signifie augmenter la consommation de gaz de plus de 40 ou 50%. Or, deuxième événement majeur, l'invasion de l'Ukraine, là on voit cette invasion apporte des conséquences économiques qui contrarient complètement cette trajectoire vers la décarbonation. D'abord par la hausse du prix du gaz qui rend beaucoup plus coûteux ce passage des énergies, la hausse du gaz et du fuel évidemment. Et le deuxième problème, c'est les quantités, puisque l'Europe veut se rendre indépendante de la Russie, donc diminuer ses quantités de gaz, à un moment donné où elle avait prévu les augmenter. Donc ça veut dire qu'on va continuer à utiliser beaucoup de charbon pour remplacer le gaz qu'on n'a pas, et donc augmenter les émissions de gaz à effet de serre. Donc on a une situation extrêmement complexe. Par ailleurs, il faut qu'une deuxième conséquence de cette invasion de l'Ukraine, c'est que la décarbonation de l'économie mondiale ne peut fonctionner que si tous les pays du monde sont d'accord, qu'il y ait une coopération mondiale. Or, ce qui s'est passé, on s'est aperçu au moment de cette invasion de l'Ukraine que le monde n'était pas uni, que le monde est polarisé en plusieurs groupes et que la confiance et la coopération ont reculé. Ils avaient peut-être reculé depuis longtemps, on ne s'en était pas aperçu, mais là on s'en est aperçu. Donc la solution va être très compliquée. Voilà. Ce n'est pas une raison pour ne pas agir, il faut être confiant, mais ça va être challenging, comme on dit.
Merci. Thank you. Maybe, Doctor, what's your view and how Akuo is actually analyzing the situation right now?
Thank you very much for the invitation, first of all, and for being here as part of the discussion. I will have to say everything in English, sorry, I will use English. First of all, the Secretary General, Ms. Alexandra Zdoukou, was not able to attend, and she sends her apologies from the Minister's behalf. There is a meeting with the Prime Minister about energy security, actually, and the measures that we are doing in the country as we speak. And this is one of the main challenges. I mean, we are living in a new world, actually, after the invasion in Ukraine from Russia. We are experiencing an energy crisis, as we're saying. I mean, today, if we look at the day-ahead price in Greece, is 334 euro per megawatt hour. This is a 34% increase from today's price. And why is this? Because we have less renewable energy in the system, and we have more of natural gas contributing into our electricity mix. So it could not be more topical and more important to say that the consensus from EU or the voices at the European level should lead to the diversification away from hydrocarbons, higher penetration of renewables. That has a lot of challenges. We heard a lot about the supply chain costs and the material cost increasing. We hope that this will normalize in the coming months, maybe more than that. But at the same time, there are other issues that it's not only a Greek phenomenon, the fact that we have a slow licensing processing of renewable energy systems, and not only that, also for big infrastructure projects. In Europe, there are a lot of voices actually at the moment that they are talking about targeting this specific topic of the faster licensing of the projects. At the Greek level, we have a new legislation piece, a new bill that is coming very soon under consultation, public consultation, which effectively tackles what we would call the second phase of licensing of renewable energy projects. The first one is with the Regulatory Authority for Energy and getting a production license. This has been sorted out, but now we need to sort out how efficiently can we environmentally license a project and then go to the next step, which is the connection to the grid, to the electricity grid, which is a main challenge. We are looking at electrifying our economy, so another challenge, I've just tried to put the highlights there, is the transportation and what kind of fuel the transportation will be using in the coming years. So the more we electrify, the more electricity we will need, which means then more green energy that we will be requiring, at least in the long term. For the short term, we understand that at least for the energy mix of the country, natural gas is a very important and vital element of our strategy. I guess that's why the MYTILINEOS group is investing in a new CCGT power plant. But the idea is that in the long run, we should try to diversify away from hydrocarbons and effectively tackle, and I will close with this, which is effectively the main challenges we have, the 4Ds as we call them, just the English initials from the words. One is the decarbonization that Mr. Mouratoglou also talked a lot about what the EU needs to do to decarbonize and meet the climate goals. We need to decentralize our electricity mix, meaning that, and I'm referring also to a very peculiar case of Greece as well, and our energy mix with the islands. We're looking at not central big units of nuclear plants or natural gas plants, but smaller, manageable, renewable energy systems, ideally with storage. And also we have been fortunate enough throughout the crisis, which was the COVID situation throughout the world. We have a lot of funds that are now dedicated into financing investment around infrastructure for connection, for grid projects, for storage projects here in Greece. This amounts to more than 6 billion euro over the next 3 years. So this is very important. Then the third D is the digitalization, something that we need to always remember, that the energy industry needs to innovate a little bit more and needs to integrate technology even faster than what it has been used to, because it has been very slow in terms of the pace of embracement of new technologies, and we need them now more than ever. And the last thing, which is extremely important, especially at the policy-making level, is the democratization of energy, and this is tackling the issue of energy poverty, which through this energy crisis, because of the war in Ukraine, we see more and more. The Greek government has spent almost 2.5 billion euro in subsidies over the few past months just to subsidize the energy bills of the households that are really struggling to make it through with very high energy prices that we have seen recently. There are estimations that the pre-COVID numbers, the cost of electricity in our system was about 5 to 6 billion euro. Now we are looking at a cost for 22 in the ranks of 15 to 17 billion euro. So you understand that there is one direct issue, and I'm closing with this, of the high energy costs, because it translates into the bigger bill. But we have so many other challenges, which are the indirect effects that this has. Also because of the lowering, if you wish, of the spending power of the Greek households, but most importantly also what happens to the Greek industry, from small, medium enterprises and the big industry, and how competitive can they still continue to be in this international environment, and starting from the European environment first, but then looking at the international environment. So there's so many things the energy sector has, and the challenges are so many that we need to work hard, and we need to do many things actually in the coming years to be able to sort it out. So with this, I will stop here. And
Thank you. Thank you very much. So yes, as we can see, there is a lot of challenge, but at least you want to add something? Yeah, please.
If I can add one thing, two things actually, and apologies for jumping into this. Just to clarify, the comment I made on licensing, it's a global thing. Regretfully, what we've seen, it's in Greece, we've done good steps towards streamlining the whole thing, but because of our presence in numerous countries around the globe, we see that the licensing, the connection issues, it's something which is global. So unless you resolve this, you cannot achieve that. And one point, and again, I'm looking at you, apologies for jumping into this. If you look at the electricity prices, this is a very good example how a decarbonization strategy, by adapting a wrong pace or taking a wrong strategy towards decarbonizing, can increase prices significantly. If you look at prices before the Russia invasion, what you've seen is that prices were high. And they were high because Germany shut down all its nuclear plants, China stopped all its coal plants. Effectively, you had an issue with the gas pipeline from Russia to Europe. You have a significant pickup in demand, in production demand, and overall demand as a result of the COVID normalization. So the whole system was not ready to absorb this. And you cannot only rely on renewables. You need to have something that will provide the base load. In the absence of battery storage or hydrogen or other technologies at economical terms, inevitably, I fully agree with you, in the mid to not long term, but to a 10-year period, 10, 12-year period, you would inevitably rely on gas. So you have to either apply other technologies or other policies so that you can reduce demand, become more energy efficient, promote renewables, so that ultimately you can go away from natural gas at some point in time to other more green options. Sorry for that, once again.
Sorry, I will continue just with one question, because this is the second time you're mentioning decreasing demand. Isn't it a bit contradictory in our economy, where actually any businessman or as entrepreneurs you have as an objective to grow? So isn't it a bit contradictory to look for growth and to decrease demand?
You're absolutely right, but when the demand picked up, it was immediately after the first or the second lockdown. So you had lots of production plants that were operating at reduced capacity. So you didn't have the supply. That was one thing. So the whole system, transportation skyrocketed. Goods from China skyrocketed. You had also lots of traditional power plants, coal plants, lignite plants, nuclear plants, which are not traditional, but for some peculiar reason, Germany decided to shut them down following the incidents in Japan. So you had an increase, a pickup in the demand from consumers. You have a reduced production, and the production could not pick up so that can actually meet the increased demand, and you had certain sources of electricity being out of the market. So this created a huge problem in terms of prices. If you add the political speculation initially in the first months with respect to the conflict, which escalated to the invasion, this is why you have a perfect storm.
Thank you. So let's move to tourism sector. So we see that in energy, at least there is a consciousness. I think it's clear at political level and the company level. Do you feel the same for the tourism sector?
Yeah, of course. First, we should do a broad statement about what is tourism about for Europe. We have about, in average, in all countries, is 10% of the GDP, 8 in France, more than 20 in Greece. So we're facing a huge challenge in terms of global competition, because this is an industry where Europe is standing as a leader, attracting clients or tourism from all over the world, but also regional tourism. So how we are facing the coming challenge, going hopefully out of the COVID period. So we have to onboard two profiles of people. We have to onboard our clients and our staff and affiliates, because they are the ones who are showing at what path our society is changing and is evolving. To do so, probably we will go through gaining productivity. We have no choice, because we have inflation coming ahead. We are questioning ourselves what is going to happen with the consumption power. I mean, how many years we will be able to pay holidays, take plane, going to nice resort, having spa, massage, whatever you like. So, and in the same time, we don't find people to work in the hotel in most part of the world, or at least in Europe. So how we can fuel this investment that the society has reshaped in terms of value. People now want to go to a place that has senses. The clientele, the tourism, they decided to reallocate the value when they want to consume tourism. And this reallocation of value goes through low carbon, sustainable responsibility, and so on. So now how we fuel this investment, because we will have to, it's about gaining productivity. And I think it's a fantastic challenge, because it's a new era coming ahead, it's a new cycle. We have to find innovation not only in product, but innovation in the way we organize the production of the service. And I think it's where we need to leverage entrepreneurs. We heard this morning that entrepreneurship is driving changes, innovation, and this is clearly what we need for an industry that is as heavy as 200 million people in the world, and probably Europe has decided to hold the leadership in this industry. We have know-how, we have fantastic cultural and natural beauty, and we need to leverage and to make sure that the growth in demand, the growth in value we create will benefit to the locals, will benefit to local employment, to local wealth, and to keep these excellences in terms of industry in Europe. So to sum up, we have to, the wall of financing this sustainable energy, we have to onboard not only our staff but our clients, because when they will have an experience in a nice resort with no single-use plastic, it's a change of experience. It's not going to be exactly the same easy experience they used to have in the last decade, and to drive innovation. But this is what all Europe is about, I guess.
Thank you. So just, you definitely think that, let's say, it will be a differentiating factor for the customer.
Yeah.
So, but my question would be, how would you prove actually, or do you need any kind of label or something that needs to be marketed or advertised to the customer to make a difference between one resort to another, for example?
10 years ago, and I think you have a fantastic resort in Greece, which is Costa Navarino, with more on the agricultural part, and I think show a nice example. 10 years ago, you will differentiate yourself with a very strong sustainable politic in your product. Today, you discriminate yourself if you don't embrace the change. So, of course, anything that will help, that will support, like labels or regulation, will be, I think, very important. If we take the example of France, we were speaking about nuclear energy and sustainability energy, the underlying energy produced in France in terms of carbon footprint is very low due to the nature of the production that we have, and this is probably something which should collectively think about how we can create an environment that is low carbon, that the hospitality and tourism industry can produce their services on it. It will be a good start. And the second thing is regulation. After the Paris climate meeting we decided to implement a regulation about how we construct and how we manage energy in the building. You have residential building, office building, and hotel and tourism building, when you have a lot of air conditioning in every room, swimming pools, spas, and everything. So there is a very high consumption of energy. So we really need regulations and underlying production of energy, which is low carbon. And then we'll see how creative will be the industry.
Thank you. Maybe we can move on to a next it's a series of questions, and I will continue on tourism. Can you give us some example of concrete projects that can actually sustain this orientation, this challenge? And do you actually, or through your partners, do you have a return of experience of how do they found their project, or even for yourself?
Okay, let me be very honest here. All our industry and investors, they're just asking themselves that they have 10% increase of wages because we have to increase wages in our industry. We have 15% increase in utilities, so energy, by producing the cost. And we have probably, again, 15% increase from the suppliers, those who are cleaning the sheets, who are providing food. So they are facing to 20 to 30% increase of the production cost, and just getting out of the COVID with almost limited cash flows that were generated. So to empower them toward a mid and long-term carbon reduction strategy, it's tough. They are not ready to hear that at the moment, but still there is interesting initiative. I think to grow local, or to leverage local suppliers to reduce the carbon footprint, to help the client to calculate the carbon footprint of their journey during the trip, the travel they have. These are some initiatives that are implemented right now, and probably will help to go to more heavy cash-oriented investments.
Thank you. Maybe moving back to energy, can you give us, maybe we can start with you, about concrete example on projects that are going on right now in Akuo, and or as
Yes, sure.
as your responsibility on the Greek islands, maybe you have some examples of concrete projects, and how do you actually found fundings, or have you easy access to funding for financing these projects?
Okay, I'll start from the last point that you made. in the past, it was difficult to find, like 15, 20 years ago, it was very difficult to find money, to have capital to invest in the renewable energy projects and these green initiatives. Now it's the easiest thing to find the capital available to be able to do these projects. The tough part is to identify the good projects to be able to invest in. As a comment of how the industry and how our life, let's say, have changed in terms of this respect. A concrete project, we as Akuo Energy here in Greece, we have been part of a very nice demo case, of a demonstration case of one small Greek island, which is Chalki in the Dodecanese, where we managed to make it a net zero island. It has about 200 households as inhabitants, so you understand that the consumptions are very small. We were able to build 1 megawatt of photovoltaic plant, which was enough with the tools that the government as well has allowed recently to be able to support, for example, the concept of an energy community, meaning that a lot of people together with a municipality can join forces and be able to save on their energy, that now this is being produced by green means, which is a photovoltaic plant. And alongside, of course, with the great support of the ambassador himself personally, Mr. Maisonneuve, the French embassy, the Chamber of Commerce, and other French companies like Vinci and Citroën, we were able to illustrate that the new era is here. I mean, we can make it happen, we can do it. And, you know, a small island has electric cars, it has renewable energy, it has innovation, 5G networks that are all running green energy. So that's one part. And
do you actually think it's expandable or can be reproduced or scale the different...
It can definitely be replicable. It is tougher to make an island autonomous if the consumption is much bigger, but this is the challenge that we need to overcome in terms of licensing, for example, of renewable energy projects. I'm not going to argue on the technology, whether it would be wind in a combination with or one or the other with solar, for example. Then definitely you will need storage as well, so that you are able to stabilize the grid. Alongside a backup system that has already depreciated its investment if they are already running on diesel generators. So for us, it's also a big challenge for the Greek islands and our system, on one hand, to connect them with cables, with the mainland, so that would reflect the energy mix of the main country, but also at the same time try to make them as more autonomous as possible and decarbonize them as much as we can with renewable energy systems. Maybe PV is more socially acceptable, maybe on the islands. We have to consider a vital point, which is the scarcity of land on islands. So there are ways out there. Also, as Akuo, we have illustrated that in other parts of the world where we can do agriculture with green energy production as well, and so save on the land or utilize the land twice as much as we could. This is a very concrete example, but I will close also with the initiatives that are coming also from the Greek point of view in terms of the policy making and the government. Minister Skrekas has also been spearheading, let's say, the committee that I'm chairing as well in terms of decarbonizing our Greek islands. We have funds available. We have about 2 billion euro of capital that is coming from the European Commission because of the unused CO2 emissions that we didn't have in the past few years. So we have 25 million tons of CO2. CO2 prices are exploding, so if you do the calculations, we're talking about more than 2 billion euro possibly in the coming 6 years that we can utilize to decarbonize our Greek energy system on the islands. So there are means, either through European money, from national funds or from private initiatives, that I'm sure we can illustrate that this can work and we can make it the sooner the better, obviously, but I guess in the next decade or so we will see major changes in this respect.
Thank you very much. Mr. MOURATOGLOU, can you give us some example as well of a project that is going on within your group?
Maybe and try to describe what we are doing. Sorry. What we are doing in my company. On the short term, we think the most valuable thing to do, the most urgent thing to do is energy saving. We can save a lot of energy. We have two subsidiaries, which one for buildings, one we can go to between 70-80% saving in energy, which is tremendous, something, and to 90-95% saving in CO2. That's now developing in France, in a lot of buildings, in China, in India, and we hope to develop it like we did with renewable energies throughout the world. That's one thing. We have another subsidiary which makes energy savings in the industrial process, in industries. It's more spectacular. It's between 10 and 15% savings, but very quickly. So that's something we can implement right now. It's very important. That's the best energy is the energy you don't consume, as everybody knows. That's one thing. Then, of course, the strategy of the whole world is to go to electricity from fossil fuels to electricity. So we have been producing, generating renewable energy for now more than 40 years, and we continue throughout the world, in Australia, in India, Philippines, Africa, South America, and Greece. We have a lot of investments in Greece. It's maybe we invested. We built in Greece, I think, maybe 700 megawatts in the past year. So it's something important. So that's the second thing. Now, to develop big-scale renewables, we need storage. So we have 3 subsidiaries working in for hydrogen, and another subsidiary that manufactures batteries in a new technology. And to finish, all that will not be enough, because just with renewables, I think it's not possible to decarbonize the world. So we will not need new energy, and we are developing, we try to develop small nuclear plants. And we have a very, very promising technology. If we succeed, we're not the only ones. In the US, in China, they're also developing the same technology. If the world, if we succeed in this technology, it will be really the solution for the world's problem. But not before 2030.
So it would be a combination. I mean,
But I will be there.
You will be there, of course. But what you're saying is basically we cannot, let's say, take the renewable energy as the only solution.
It's not possible.
Right.
For a lot of reasons. It's intermittent. There is renewable energy needs a lot of space. There is a social. Some people don't want it. So, and some places in the world have no resources, no lot of sun, no lot of wind. So it's not enough. We need other. And if, as the rationale is that in 2050 there is no more emissions, that means no more fossil fuels. So we have to find a solution. And just with renewable, it's not possible. Without nuclear energy, and I think it's not possible.
And I suppose for this type of project that are requiring a lot of investments and funding, is the PPP one of the solutions?
So yes, no.
Private and public participation.
For my company, one of the projects are good. There is no problem of financing. Financing is not the issue, but BPA is very important because I just spoke about new technologies. The humanity will be saved by innovation, and BPI helps the new startups. There are a lot of ideas, but they need to be helped, and that's a very important role that BPI has. We will be saved by innovation, nothing else.
Thank you. Maybe we will jump to BPI and then I will come back as Mr. Lagarde. What is your view on this?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. MOURATOGLOU, for this introduction. So of course, we are having a lot of concrete actions in my company, in Bpifrance, and of course, on the side of fostering innovation in new energy, small nuclear, hydrogen, big program in hydrogen, big program on batteries too, because batteries are key, in fact. And for more common SMEs, mid-cap companies, we deployed a special plan, which is very, very concrete, very simple CO2 footprint online, where our clients can go online and have a very rough footprint of what their activity. We have also some programs of auditors coming and helping to have a strategy for decarbonization, and usually it's a good thing because they are gaining some very quick win money back with reducing the flow of energy, reducing the flow of entrants. And we also have special financial products to help our clients to develop larger decarbonization, let's say in industry, for example. We have special loans, which are no collateral, 2 or 3 years of grace period, and 7 to 10 years for the loan to be reimbursed. So because you need long investments in that kind of stuff. And what we are working on nowadays is something we asked ourselves. One question was, how can we help these companies? And the first thing was, we don't want to exclude. So we won't do the typical financial way of saying things, saying this company is brown, I don't want this company in my portfolio. Our way of doing it is this company is brown, so we help this company to go green. But to do that, we must have a way to assess the level of transition of a given company. And to assess it for the sake of lending this company, for example, we don't do due diligences like in private equity. Loan is a simple activity where it's a yes or no activity. So what we are developing right now is what we call a transition score. And that will be something quite simple but useful to see in a given company in its own ecosystem, environment. Let's say it's a tourism company. Tourism is a sector, let's say it's in an hotel. Hotel is at such and such level of difficulty for transition. And this company is there or there compared to the other companies in the tourism sector. And that's the way we have developed this transition scoring, and we are testing it right now in different parts of France to see if it works. And when it works, we will use it for all our activities. We are doing something like we are reaching 80,000 companies per year. So we will do that for our 80,000 companies to have a scoring and try to follow this scoring over the years. Are they doing what they told they would do? And that would help us to help the companies and manage our portfolio.
Right, and is it something, this type of scoring that you are developing now, will be exchanged or spread all over Europe? Is it something that is already, because you need a common reference from one country to another, for example?
Yes, so it's not, we didn't share it yet because we don't know if it works. So we want to be sure it works. And of course, we would like very much to exchange it with other countries, other players, and the private banks, public banks around Europe, if it works, and to change it, because you're right, it's not possible to keep it in a small territory.
So far, I mean, actually at European level, there is not such equivalent of what you're doing now.
Of course, other players on the financial scene have done it, usually for bigger companies. So there has been some works in different sectors of the financial world to try to score their clients. But what we've seen is usually for large transactions where you can do due diligences, where you can put really some effort in doing a real evaluation of the company. So when you're investing a few €100 million, you can say, okay, we'll have a good look at what the level of transition is in this company, because it will impact the future need of capex and valuation of the company. When you are, on the contrary, lots of players have done that. To my knowledge, nobody has done something on the small loans, because it's a small quantity. You don't do due diligences, and it's much more. It can only be something simple, in fact.
Thank you. Regarding MYTILINEOS, so can you give us some example also of project that you are running right now? And same questions: how do you find the finance appropriate for this, or is it self-funding?
First of all, I would fully subscribe to what Mr. Mouratoglou mentioned on the adequacy of renewables and the need for new technologies and everything. Mr. Mouratoglou is our guru on the renewables, and nobody can disagree with him. It's an honor to be next to him. With respect to investments, I would focus on two main investments that we're doing that relate to our CO2 emission targets. The one is in energy. Both of them relate to our metallurgy business. The one is in energy. We're actually aiming at having constructed or entered into a PPA for a capacity of around 400 megawatts of solar by 2023, when our existing electricity contract with PPC expires, and we take over the responsibility of supplying our aluminum smelting business. And part of it, greenification of its production comes from these initial 400. The aspiration is to 100% rely on green energy, but in order to achieve this, so you need to build another 1.4 giga of PVs, but you will need to have some other things in place so that you can compensate for balancing cost, etc. So this is one of the main investments. The second investment, it's not necessarily directly relates to energy, but it goes back to the plethora of options that you have to achieve your CO2 emission reduction targets, is by expanding our aluminum recycling business. We currently have a capacity of around 55,000 tons of aluminum coming from recycling, secondary aluminum. The target is initially to double that capacity and eventually even more, become bigger in the recycling business. That would allow you to reduce your energy cost and to reduce your overall CO2 footprint, which is an aspiring target for us. Now, in terms of financing, I would agree with what our esteemed guest here said on the plethora of tools that you have. At that level, for new technologies, it's a different thing. You always need to have DFIs, you need to have private equity, you need to have wealth funds, you need to have private offices to invest there. But on our end, I think there is a combination of debt capital, capital markets, and also the RRF. The RRF is a significant, important tool that facilitates a lot the investment, certain earmarked investments that are targeting towards the transition period and the greenification of the economy. And so we have found very great support from the government and the various authorities and the good work that they've done. So we are getting lots of funds from there.
Thank you very much. I think we still have 1 or 2 minutes. Maybe we can take if any questions from the audience. I don't know if it was planned, but anyway, if anybody's got questions for our honorable speakers.
We have a tremendous issue on energy because our gas was so cheap for a long time and now it isn't. So we do think we earn our position in industry and agro-food because of the cheap gas. But we do also think that the clean energy is much cheaper in areas like Greece. Are you prepared for a tremendous increase in demand for energy when industry may move from areas from the Netherlands into areas like Greece? Are you capable of taking over all those energy demanding companies?
I have to admit it's a very interesting question. It cannot be answered merely by the Greeks, because first of all, you need to have the interconnections. So you need to have enough interconnection that would allow more power to come out of Greece to go to the other countries. And then it boils down to the cost. Now, obviously, if we can expand the pace of licensing projects in Greece, if we can expand and finance, first of all, the connections of islands to the mainland, because currently you have two main technologies. You have solar and you have wind. With wind, I would argue that it's pretty much exhausted in Greece, on the mainland, save for Peloponnese, pending the connection to the mainland. So if you want to build new wind farms, you would either have to connect the islands or you have to expedite the offshore wind. Subject to those two things happening, then obviously you can increase your overall capacity, renewable capacity. And then it remains to the solar. So it boils down to the available land and the connections, because ultimately there is a limitation of how many capacity you can put into the system. And the most crucial part would be the connection. Now, you cannot, it's not only renewables. You need, if you have lots of renewables, then you need to have, and the system, you need to have also batteries, and you have to have presumably open cycle gas plants so that you can balance the system, so that you can provide auxiliary services. So it's not a very straightforward yes or no question. The will is here, I think, from all market participants, but there are a lot of collateral investments that have to be undertaken, both in places like Greece, but also in other places around Europe, so that at least you would have that coherent plan. But again, I would fully go back to what Mr. MOURATOGLOU mentioned. You cannot only rely on renewables. You need to have something more concrete like nuclear or something, or if battery can become economic so that you can have base load, that will be an option.
If I add a point on this, I mean, obviously we can eventually even become net exporters of green energy. So I believe that at least Greece has the resources, at least on the sun, on the wind, to be able to produce even more than what we are consuming at the end of the day. But yes, you need physical infrastructure. You need, first of all, connections to be able to connect your projects. That's one thing. New technologies on a commercial scale and a big scale, like hydrogen solutions in terms of storage, because you can have batteries, but maybe storage can be served with hydrogen as well. So you may be finding it easier to connect into a hydrogen power producing plant in terms of connection of your PV. Then there is a challenge with land, but there are plans here, and I would just need to mention also another facility that exists in Greece with the lignitization of our system. We have an ambitious plan to shut down lignite power plants next year. That means that there are areas like in Kozani area, West Macedonia, and in the south, in Peloponnese, that we need to reinvent the economies, locally speaking, but also the energy mix there. So there are big-scale projects as well happening there, testing this new technology, so we need to see what's coming next. But most importantly, to answer your question, we need interconnection with cross-border interconnections with either our northern border or our eastern border with Turkey. So all the Balkan countries. With Italy, there is one. There is an expansion on a second line. And recently, we have also a big plan to connect with Egypt as well. So we need to start seeing all the possibilities that are on the table, but definitely we need to plan ahead for the decades to come. It's not easy, and you don't deploy these kind of projects within a few months. You need many years. So, yeah.
Thank you. Right, I'm afraid we are running out of time now, so we could have spent a full day session on the subject. I think thank you very much for having shared your views, experience, and to give us prospects about the future. Thank you very much. I think we can applaud our honorable speaker. Thank you very much.